Irashaimase. Hello and welcome to Fataris' Kitchen. I'm your host, Chef Fataris. It's time once again for Shoot 'em Up Saturday, and on the menu this week we have Angelstruck, a metal roguelite run and gun. What kind of taste will it have? Let's get cooking and find out. From developer Feralpaw, Angelstruck released for the PC in July of 2024. This is a title I'd previously experienced thanks to the Summer Next Fest demo that was available on Steam. Now, not a month later, we had the full release of the game, and I was really thrilled to dive back into it as I had a lot of fun with the demo and I wanted to experience the full game. So I can definitely say it's one that's worth your time and your money, as it's a relatively inexpensive title. As far as the gameplay is concerned, you definitely have some classic arcadey feel to it, as well as it feels a bit like Exit the Gungeon with some roguelike elements taken from games like Vampire Survivor with a bit of twin stick thrown in for good measure. So if all that sounds interesting to you, I definitely encourage you to check out the title. As I mentioned once again, it has a relatively low price point. It plays great on a Steam Deck, so give this one a try. Here we find ourselves at the main menu. So starting your run, we'll go and bring you to this screen here, and you have your difficulty selection. You could just start a run from here. But if you wish, you can select a whole perk setup once you've unlocked these gems. Initially, none of this will be available. You have to complete a few runs before you really have enough to buy some of these gems. But basically, you have credits that you earn for 1 credit for every 100,000 points you score on a run. Then you can use those to purchase all these perks, basically, that you can equip. So we have a certain cost that's available to us at the top, all those pips, and then we have all these different perks, which they show you your cost as well as their effect, and as you go down the tiers they become significantly more powerful, although sometimes with trade-offs, but they also become more expensive. You also have your secondary weapons on the right side as well. You start off with the Sin Harvester, which is basically kind of a shotgun like attack initially, and then you can unlock 3 other secondary weapons. I do prefer the Sin Harvester the most so far, but that's just been with my gameplay experience. So as far as these perks are concerned, so they have some really neat effects. Some are kind of basic, like Gifted here. Increased damage by 5% and your fire rate slightly, so by 5% as well. But then you've got all these others, some that have some really interesting abilities, like Rage here. Increased critical damage by 50% at the expense of a little bit of damage. So that's actually has some great benefit to it. You also have ones like Sharpshooter. This is one that I've quite liked using as well. Increased damage by 50% at the expense of your fire rate. So I kept things relatively straightforward though, and just took mostly tier 1 perks with a little bit of tier 2 thrown in there for good measure. So as far as difficulty selection is concerned, you have easy and warm-up available initially. Completing easy unlocks hard and nightmare. Starting the game on easy, so you've got these fun little tooltips while the game is loading here. Sometimes you've got like just the controller layout, but I do like the visual presentation of this game so much. It's just like stylish all over the place, like this opening sequence, for example. So we're playing this underworld angel, going and attacking these angel demon type things as we move upward. So this is the gameplay we have for Angelstruck. So it's a fixed screen presentation. That means that the screen itself is always one screen. We will ultimately be scrolling up, but for the most part it's just that we're on an elevator. As far as our movement is concerned, so you've got your left stick for your movement. You can go left and right. Right stick is both our aiming and our fire as well. So as you hold the right stick, you'll fire in the direction that you're aiming the stick. However, it is also possible to use an auto fire. So if we turn the auto fire on, if I don't move the stick around, it'll actually target where the reticule is and you'll shoot in that direction. It's actually pretty neat. So this game is a roguelite. As we defeat enemies, a couple things are happening, but one of them is we are earning experience. And as you earn experience, you'll fill up a bar on the right of the screen, fill it up enough, and we get our first choice of basically upgrades that we can pick for our character. So there's a lot of really great UI touches that I love with what they've done here. So as you upgrade these, you will ultimately be able to synergize them with other upgrades. And for each of the upgrades that have the ability to synergize with others, you see those upgrades at the top there synergizes with. Just that nice little feature there where it tells you that this will synergize with harm, proficiency, fire sea spear, for example, is a wonderful touch. So I really appreciate that. Some unfortunately don't have synergies like the ethereal sword here, but that's the upgrade I'm going to take, as I do so rely on this particular upgrade to get me through a run. So let's turn auto fire back off. So as I was mentioning, the auto fire will continue to fire at that the same point that you had your aim at, and that can be useful when you're dodging around. So as far as other movement options, so we have the ability to dash, and the dash does give you momentary invulnerability while you're dashing. In addition to that, the dash will also deal some fairly heavy damage to the enemies that dare to come down to your level. So we're already to our second upgrade, and initially the game does give you 5 rerolls. So if I don't see anything I want here, then you can hit the button to reroll it, and some of these will be the same, some of these won't. So the pool is fairly deep, and you can actually pull up the codex to go and see all the possible upgrades, both the main unlocks themselves as well as their upgraded version, which is the overcharge, and then you can also see the synergies, although it's not as clear there which ones they synergize with. Let's re-roll one more time, and yeah, actually proficiency is a great one. This one just increases your fire rate as well as your overall magazine size, so you're just firing a little bit more damage out there, just increasing your DPS. And really, like so many run and gun roguelites, as far as what you're most looking for on a run, your DPS, being able to deal more damage, is key to having a successful run. So there's one other element to our movement that I haven't talked about, and that's because I don't find as much use for it. There would be situations where it can be useful, but for me personally, I just haven't found a whole lot of utilization for it, and that's the ability to jump. So as you jump, you can dash both left and right, or even down to deal damage that direction. But once again, the situations that would be useful are kind of tricky, and ultimately, well, I end up kind of taking damage when I try to pull off pretty snazzy maneuvers like that. So options abound here. I'm going to take lightning just to continue where we're building at. So as I was mentioning, when we defeat enemies, we're gaining experience from them. But in addition to that, we also gain some energy for our secondary weapon, which is available there at the bottom. So that bar on the bottom is segmented into several sections, and depending on, once you fill up one of those initial sections, you can fire off your secondary weapon. It'll vary depending on which secondary weapon you have, but once you get to full charge, that's when it'll be the most effective. We find ourselves fighting our first boss. The boss fights are a lot of fun in this game, as they just go and have that awesome stylish look that the entire title is just oozing with. But one thing, if I could go and wish for a little bit, is the fights themselves are relatively static. You'll always encounter the same bosses in the same order, and the fights themselves have roughly the same patterns. So it would have been nice if there was just a little bit more to go and change that up, either some bosses that would rotate through, or a few more patterns for the bosses themselves. So back at the upgrade screen, we'll just go and grab another upgrade, and we're back into the run itself. So this game does have health, and depending on how you're getting hit, you can actually lose life quite quickly. The life bar is indicated there on the left with the number of life at the bottom of the screen. So right now I've got 55 HP, and with base or near base damage resist, it would only take a couple hits for me to ultimately use all that life. But it is possible to recover life as we are defeating the enemies. Sometimes you'll see these green health orbs that will appear. You shooting those orbs a couple times with your main gun or with your secondary will unlock that health for you. However, you have to be quick, as those don't stay on the screen for very long. So we've moved into, after defeating that boss, we've moved into our second section, our second tier of, well, the elevator moving upward. So we're in like this kind of like fleshy realm. And yet another upgrade. For our purposes, let's go with some basically defense and health, just to keep this run going a little bit more. Now we find ourselves maxed out on your upgrades. So there are a total of 5 upgrades, plus your secondary weapon that you can upgrade. And if we're able to hit maximum level for one of those upgrades that we purchased, or that we picked, then we can get a overcharge for that. If you have 2 overcharges that can synergize with each other, then you can unlock the synergies, which are super powerful. But on an easy run, you're only going to be able to get a couple overcharges as is. So even getting the synergy, you have to be very targeted on what you're upgrading to enable that. On hard runs, that will be a little bit easier, as the run is basically double the length that an easy run is. You have 5 bosses in easy, 10 bosses in hard. But the levels kind of come at the same point, so you're always going to have roughly the same level progression. So even though we are earning experience by defeating enemies, really you always are kind of like leveling up the exact same time throughout every run. A couple times through each stage, then once after defeating the boss, for a maximum of, I believe, well, the first section like has the most at like 5 levels, and then from there it's like 4 to 5 levels per section. And that basically is Angelstruck served up for your enjoyment. So as far as like the couple of the things I think this game could go and do better, the minus flavors, is I just wish there was just a little bit more variety in both the bosses, as I mentioned, as well as like they're always in a static order, which would be fine, but I honestly wouldn't mind seeing some more patterns to the bosses themselves. Then, as far as main weapons are concerned, like, I would like it if we could have maybe a different kind of a couple more options for the main weapon. There is a perk that kind of turns it into a 3-way shot, which is pretty fun to play with. But aside from that, there's not a whole lot we can do with our main shot. So just a couple more options like that would have been great to go and see in the game itself. But as far as the plus flavors are concerned, first and foremost, I just love the whole presentation of this game itself. It has an awesome kind of metal soundtrack that really fits the game and the visual look, and the visual look itself is just stunning with that bright, vibrant color scheme that relies very heavy on the oranges and yellows throughout. I just love the way that this game looks. In addition to that, we also have some really cute and silly artwork for our main character, the Underworld Angel, that are presented throughout the course of your gameplay. That just is a wonderful touch to see, and if you see those, you'll definitely know what I mean. Also, just all like the whole leveling up system that this game presents, as well as the upgrades that you can purchase for all the perks and the way you can customize your run, and the super low price point. In addition to that, as I mentioned, it plays great on the Steam Deck. It just handles wonderfully. This is definitely a game that I recommend you give a try if you like this style of gameplay. And with that, we find ourselves at the end of this week's episode of Shoot 'em Up Saturday. As always, I want to thank you so much for joining us this week. I hope you have a wonderful week yourself, and we look forward to seeing you again next time.